breeze today, and with the weather getting so hot, we have not had as much time to work on trot as I would like, but today's a bit overcast and breezy. There's a lot going on with the neighbors and the kids. So what we're going to look at is a little bit of trot work just to check in. I haven't asked for trot in a couple of weeks because it was just really hot, and I had to rinse him off and work at the walk just to kind of keep things going. And finally we got a little break in the heat, so we're trying to get back to it. So we're just going to maybe do 10 minutes of walk trot transitions, maybe 5 minutes each way, but I'll sort of see how he does and how his breathing looks. And even though we haven't worked on trot, I want to do this check-in to see if the work we've been doing at walk is helping with his overall comfort and coordination. That usually helps build up the desire to go forward. Making forward more comfortable is how we overcome what we call lazy or stubborn horses. Horses only resist going forward because they get uncomfortable. So influencing the coordination, even at the walk, the more comfortable he gets, the more willingly he will work on trot. Good. So again, not a super trot, but the improvement I see is he's not breaking to walk quite as quickly. So he's sort of exploring, finding comfort in the trot. He's willing to trot longer periods. He's more responsive to the whip. My aids are lighter. I hope I don't have that camera too close. Ooh, I think we lost it, Hercs. Nope, we got it. I have to move down a little bit. I think I put the camera too close. Okay. And watching the stress level, especially when we're working on trot or canter, or we're working for a long period when it's hot and humid, or we go through these heat waves, what I always pay attention to is sort of the breathing. So I watch the nostrils, and once they start flaring, we stop the work at the trot and canter. We do what we can. I don't ask him to trot more than 10 minutes at a time anyways, because he's not a big fan of going faster, so we have to build it up over time. But most importantly, when the weather's hot and a little iffy, as soon as the breathing becomes labored and the horse's nostrils are flaring, with or without sweat, doesn't matter, or how sweaty they are or how not sweaty they are, I watch the breathing to know when we're hitting a level of stress that's going to take our training backwards, right? So a little bit of cardiovascular work is good. A little bit of exploring the trot is good. But depending on these hot summer days, if his nostrils were already flaring by now, which was happening 2 weeks ago, then that would be all the trot I would work on, and just let him continue at the walk. And if his breathing couldn't come back to normal, then I would just cut the session short, because there's no point in, once they're breathing to the point we can really see the nostrils flaring. In rehab work especially, we're no longer moving the direction we want to go. We're starting to put the body under so much stress that the stress hormones are going to be released, and the body's going to become more protective rather than more athletic. So, but today's the perfect day with this cloud cover and this nice breeze. We'll see what he looks like at the 5-minute mark, and may continue to do a little bit more. So my plan is, at the most, 20 minutes of trot total, or walk-trot transitions, if his breathing is normal or not stressed. And then I'll finish up on the long reins on a big circle. And mostly because the riding for Hercules is sort of the test. He changes his balance and coordination faster without the weight of a rider. And not all horses are that way, but Hercules definitely makes faster progress doing groundwork than he does under saddle. So I still ride him, but the riding is at the walk until the trot on the groundwork improves. And if I'm not riding him, because that's every other day at most, then we have a groundwork day in between. So if I can't do the trot, or if I can only do a little bit of trot work, then we work on the long reins. So I'll show a little bit of that today. So we're just hitting the 5-minute mark. He's not breathing hard. I'm going to ask for one more transition, but if he's not improving the trot, like he's not trotting as long, he's not offering as much, I'm going to go ahead and change directions and do 5 minutes the other way. And he goes, what? That's kind of a short amount of trot. Good boy. Because especially with horses that are not big fans of going forward and don't offer a lot of forward energy, the more we can keep it interesting, easy, achievable, even comfortable, we help build the desire for moving forward a little bit at a time. So for Hercules, even 5 minutes of working on trot, I go, it's enough to keep getting steady improvements as he gets better and better at it and gets more comfortable. And I think the biggest change since the last video update I did with Hercules is he goes into trot a lot easier, and the trot has enough energy that I don't really have to bump him up to canter and borrow energy from the canter. It's a slow trot, he's on the forehand, it's not great, but it has just enough energy and he's holding it long enough that I don't need to borrow energy by going to canter. And that was sort of where I was hoping to get before we got to our summer weather. Because again, I don't want to tax him at the canter. And there's some days and even some weeks where it is just unbelievably hot, and even working the walk is a little bit taxing. And we work year round, we don't stop working, but we sort of adjust how much cardiovascular work we do depending on the weather. So for us, the winter is the best time to kind of bump it up a notch, and the summer is where we slow down a little. And when I lived in Colorado, it was the opposite. We could get a lot more training done in the summer, but had to kind of slow things down in the winter just because we had so much snow. Yeah, so even these sort of 5 minutes, I'm seeing him put some thought and put some effort into his trot work, which is a sign of going in the right direction, even if it still doesn't look great yet. Then there's little moments in there where it looks decent. It doesn't last long. It's kind of a stride or two, and then he falls forward, loses his balance, gets distracted, that kind of thing. But all in all, I say he's pretty focused on it, and he's kind of exploring, how do I get comfortable in trot, which is exactly where I want his mind to be. Because better coordination, what is more sort of mechanically correct in the coordination of the body, is always more efficient, which means we get ease of motion and more comfort. So I don't have to manipulate him into better balance. he's going to discover better and better balance through trial and error by sort of paying attention to what he feels and doing the best he can with what he has. So for Hercules, I would say this is a fair bit of effort to even work on the trot and maintain it longer. And he's very calm, very focused. So I go, now it's a matter of time and practice and how much we can do per session based on the weather or his fitness or anything else. Do one more. So that's just 5 minutes each way, which is kind of enough to encourage him to go more forward. But even in the kind of couple of weeks we haven't trotted much, if at all, just working on the long reins, I've seen him offer more and more forward energy even at the walk without having the trot to sort of bump up the energy level before we start walking. Boy, he goes, that was 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to put down the whip and grab the other long rein, and we'll just do a quick check-in on how he's doing. And Hercules, I had to do the small circles on the long reins for a while to really get him comfortable engaging his hindquarters more. But the hard part of working on small circles on the long reins is it challenges the forward energy. It makes going forward a little bit harder rather than a little bit easier. So what we're doing on the long reins is more like what we're doing, let's go this way again, is more like what we're doing under saddle, right? It's a little smaller circle than what I can ride, but I'm going to kind of let the long reins out to make a circle as big as possible, and then work on basically the long reins on the circle are helping him stabilize the levelness of his back and the levelness of his hindquarters. And it's just a big enough circle where he stays engaged. I don't need a smaller one to keep the engagement, but it's straight enough or big enough that it's easier for him to untwist the spine, which was sort of his main issue, was a chronic, stuck left twist, left bend that made him extremely one-sided. Right? So there, as he starts to lengthen the neck, that's telling me that he's finding relief, he's finding a little bit better alignment, so he's reducing the invisible lateral bend in there, and maybe even starting to straighten out that twist. So I'm just going by the feel of the long reins, but whether I ride him on a circle a little bit bigger than this or I do the long reins, it's pretty much the same work. So again, for the video, we're just going to check in and sort of see how he does for about 5 minutes to the right, about 5 minutes to the left, and just to see how he's progressing. Yeah. And for Hercules, this is just a nice, steady walk. It's not super fast, it's not energetic, but the first sign of progress is he quit stopping all the time. The second sign of progress was he got out of that sort of first gear where he was moving in a cloud of turtle dust and started bumping it up just a little, almost second gear. Very good. And learning to lengthen the neck and keep pushing forward with the hind legs is exactly the coordination. It's kind of where he needs his next stage of development. right? So the lengthening of the neck is the result of stabilizing the midline and getting a minimal degree of hindquarter engagement. So the longer he makes that neck, the more I know he's straightened out his spine, stabilized his hindquarter, and maybe even is starting to not push the back down, not lift it very much, but not push it down. Excellent. And he's definitely lighter and lighter on my hands. And I work him in the snaffle instead of the halter on the long reins because he was a little different between the halter and the snaffle. And so the snaffle just allows us to feel the balance and through the reins a little bit more precisely, with more detail than the halter. But either one will work. And if it makes a difference to how the horse moves, then we need to do both. Start where it's easy, and then where it was more difficult or a bad reaction, kind of work through that until that gets easy. So we've been working in the snaffle on the long reins. Same bridle I use when I ride, a wild kitty in the bushes. And he's finally gotten lighter, quieter, finding the same balance he was finding in the halter, he's now finding in the bridle. And like I said, this will just be kind of a quick check-in for how Hercs is doing. And something's going on with the neighbors that caught his attention. So we're going to change direction and just do about 5 minutes the other way. And this has been his harder side. So the other thing I've done while we're a little bit restricted because of the heat is spent more time tracking left, where his balance is not as good, he isn't quite as energetically forward, he struggles a bit more. So some days we do a quick warm-up on the good direction to the right and spend 80% of the session working through gently on the less coordinated direction, trying to get it caught up so he's more equal tracking left and tracking right. So he doesn't have to work harder to the left. Most often when we have one-sidedness, it's a matter of spending more quiet time, more slow work on the harder direction, and kind of give the horse the time to work through different issues and figure out how to balance on the harder direction at least as well as they can balance on the easier direction. And that's just letting the body change and adapt. So it's not different work, it's not harder work, it's just sort of a time and practice game. Yeah, and he's finally starting to offer a tiny bit more forward energy. I would say he's a little more stuck in first gear this direction, where he's starting to almost shift into second gear, going to the right. But very slowly, I've seen the energy start to come through to the left as he gets more comfortable. And he's had some kind of big spontaneous adjustments going left. He's definitely been working through wherever he has that discomfort, which I think is between the front legs into the neck. Excuse me. He's also I know he's distracted, but he is also a little more prone to having to bend to the outside when we track this direction, which tells me his hindquarter doesn't feel as stable to him going left as it does going right. Oh, my helper's here. Hi, kitty. So, like I said, we're just doing a quick check-in today with his groundwork. We'll do another quick check-in with his riding. It's kind of slowly, steadily going in a positive direction. I'm seeing changes. And we work on the trot as often as we can. Okay, we'll give it about 1 more minute. And then to finish up our session today, it's kind of the right weather conditions today. I might play with trot a little bit more and then finish up walking on the long reins with a little extra time to the left. And I'm just taking advantage of the temperature dropping 5 degrees and not having the beating sun on us to be able to work on that trot just a little bit more. Okay, so that's, I guess, all I want to show for today for checking in with Hercules. And like I said, I'll do a little bit more of both today for his training session because I've still got 40 minutes left. And then we'll check in with him again and just see if he keeps steadily progressing the way we want. So that's it for Hercules today.